time for the Friday Firepit.
What is it called? Friday Firepit? Firepit Fridays.
So we just put a bit more thought into dominating
miserable
comments box this morning. You gotta call it like it is.
It's Friday, like, come on. The Friday Firepit.
9:15 OTB AM, Friday Firepit. Kathleen, good morning to you.
Morning, guys. How are we?
All good. What's on the boiler this morning in the hopper?
Well, just kind of continuing on from your conversation at the start of the show, we're going to talk about commentators and what makes a good commentator, and do we really need them anymore? This is kind of following on from a Jonathan Liu article that was very controversial a couple of months back, where he said that there is no necessity for commentators these days because they talk too much compared to the older commentators. They don't leave any space for the silence in the football, and also people aren't just paying attention in the same way they used to. You know, they're on their phones, like a Mr. Colm last night who was texting me during the United match.
Well, I was actually putting my phone to the other side of the room because I generally take my phone away when I want to watch a match properly, because you can't watch it properly if you're also on the phone. No, I agree with that myself. Yeah.
I agree with myself. Well, I think
but Kathleen, I'm interested there. You reported Jonathan Liu's article there. You summarised it, but do you agree with it?
No, I don't. I think I understand what he's saying in terms of the fact that definitely commentary is a different art form now than what it used to be. And like I saw a study once about like how many words per minute commentators speak now compared to how they used to, and it is mad, the difference. It's like they have to always be saying something, and because of that, the level of commentary I don't think is as good. But it's a bit like you guys were saying earlier, there is something about just those big moments. And I think actually commentators probably matter more to you when you're a child than they do now. Like when I think of great commentary moments or moments that stick out in my head, or the reason why I love a certain commentator, it's because of a piece of commentary I've heard when I was younger, not so much now. So I think they add that nostalgia element.
I also think your expectations for quality when you're a kid on commentary, like I'm far less cynical or judgmental about the commentators from my childhood than I will be now.
But it's not because you work in the industry.
It's possible.
Yeah.
But I think the idea of, so there are bad commentators, and there are commentators that talk too much, and there are commentators that don't let the match breathe. But that is a different conversation for me than not having any commentator at all, because I actually think that in some ways the increasing use of second screening, WhatsApp, Twitter, whatever you're doing yourself in the middle of a game, nearly increases the need for a commentator, because it means that you're not looking at it. It's nearly more of a radio experience. I certainly know you'd be looking at a game sometimes, depending on what game it is, but you're paying half attention, and then the commentator ramps it up and you're like, okay, what's going on?
They provide a service. I mean, if you're taking a comfort break and you say you're on a different floor of the abode, you want the commentator to alert you if there's a chance. So I mean, that's the first service. You know what I mean? Well, I'm just giving an extreme example where you're out of action, physically and mentally you're gone. Also, but I was thinking, like when Daniel Harris was listing out his favourite commentators, and it was from a bygone era, you know, is it because there was just simply less football on TV, so we had less exposure, so it was more special? Whereas nowadays, like, you could hear the same commentator 3 or 4 times in a week, depending on the amount of football you're ingesting.
And probably for them as well, they might just be getting a bit wrecked with having to talk about football all the time. You know, they say it about like the likes of Martin Tyler and stuff now, that he's just not as interested or as he used to be. And when you listen back to his old commentary, you definitely hear a bit more of the passion there, and you can understand why, if you're talking about football all the time and trying to make it sound exciting all week, 7 days, you would just get a bit
I love a bit of Martin Tyler. I think he adds to,
and also
to the game.
You change, like if we all sit here again in 10 years time, Kathleen, which no doubt we'll do, there'll be changes and hopefully whatever else. But I don't know, there's also I don't know if you guys watch the fan channels. So like last night I was watching the United game, and I had I have no idea who this guy was, but he was a Manchester United fan, and he was broadcasting live on TikTok, and he was hell annoyed about a hell of a lot of stuff.
Oh yes.
That stuff is actually, I am not cynical about that stuff. I find it some way titillating. It's entertaining. It's adding a little bit of value and a lot of nonsense.
I think once you accept it for what it is, like you accept it to be, okay, this is fan TV, so you're going to get the fan perspective. But also when they're invested in it, and when they're like lying on the floor crying, as many Arsenal fan TVs have been over the years, it is entertaining.
I enjoy it. It's like I get why people would say it's chewing gum for the eyes, Ted, and it's a load of rubbish, and you're better off doing something else. But it equally adds a bit, like you're saying, Kathleen. It's like people. It's like sitting next to somebody who's like an uber fan of the team you're watching, and they're going crazy about it.
You love TikTok.
Yeah.
You love TikTok.
It's good, it's a good platform.
I mean, it's hard to impress you, A.
I think that's
and B,
inaccurate. But
I'm impressed that you're impressed. Like, I'd love to know why you love it so much. But you do find
just for that reason that, like, you know, I'm watching United last night. I'm not a United fan. I'm really interested in the game. It's captivating. I'm obviously busy, deeply preparing for this morning show, so I'm sort of paying half attention. But definitely having like the phone sat there and your man, whoever he was, going absolutely bonkers about United was.
See, I would find that hard during a match, though, like to listen to something else on my phone while I'm watching a game in front of me. I think it's slightly different to if there's someone beside you, you can kind of tune in and out of it in a different way to when it's on your phone. I feel like when it's on your phone, you're kind of watching them.
Yeah. RNA Deck, by the way, was this guy's name. He's like 150,000 followers on TikTok.
You're better than me. I'm not even on TikTok apart from.
You don't even need an account. You just go on it. There's a Liverpool Irish supporter on TikTok who will massively overreact to every result, and it's kind of a thing. It's kind of viral a bit. This guy, and so I'd seen a compilation of it. It was about 6 weeks ago. Is he a joke? Is he? I don't know. See, there's two Liverpool influence, let's call them, on TikTok, and one guy makes up songs about the players from famous songs and inserts Cork players' names. No, this is an English guy, and I'm really undecided if it's a parody or not. If it's not, I'm a bit worried. And the Irish guy like goes mad at results. So when Leeds won at Anfield earlier in the season, like, he went viral from that, and there was a compilation. And then this week again, he went viral again because of the Real Madrid demolition job. So that itself is finding its own little niche. I'd move away from that. Like,
well, it's sometimes hard to tell, is that performative or actual
It's definitely
passion?
Performative because they're on.
But then there are loads of fans who are just as, like, you know, who are
performative, you know.
No, but I mean, there are fans who are like, there are fans everywhere who are going crazy because, you know, Liverpool have been beaten in that instance.
Yes, you're correct. Yeah, he's definitely relating to a lot of fans. Yeah, and they're relating to him. There's a lot of empathy there for sure.
Dara, who works on AM, has said Jonathan Morley is the Liverpool Irish fan's name if you need it. Just so.
Oh, thank you, Dara. Thank you. Yeah, there's good service there out from the youth. But it is a very personal thing. Like, your love of commentary, or one for me that sticks out, because we did this in the Classic Game Club last year, was the Wimbledon final that Ivanisevic won. And the reason I love that so much is the commentary is absolutely amazing. They really, really capture the emotion of it. And it's actually Pat Cash on co-commentary when Ivanisevic is serving for the match, because he has 4 championship points. So I think it's his first one. And Cash just beautifully summarises it as like, he has tears in his eyes, and he's about to serve for Wimbledon. And it's like, even me saying that out loud now, I get goosebumps.
I can see that you're about to.
Do you know what I find weird about this job is you meet a lot of the Irish commentators that you've grown up listening to over the years, and it's just so bizarre hearing them speak in like their normal voices and not doing commentary. Like, I remember for me, Ral Nugent is one of the voices that always just like brings back so many memories, because he was like commentating on the rugby around the time that I was properly getting into sport for the first time, and it was when I remember my first, you know, proper, oh my god, my team is actually winning, this is a great experience. And I remember covering Ireland New Zealand in the Aviva for the Autumn Internationals, and he was in the room, and I just heard his voice from the other side, and I was just like, he was just asking for a cup of tea or something, and I was like,
can I have a cup of tea?
It's just really bizarre, even, you know, just meeting these people and seeing them in normal life and be like, you don't live in a little booth and just watch sport all day and talk about it.
It's an incredible skill, it really is. Before I forget, I associate George Hamilton and Jim Begden with Doom from commentating on either big Ireland qualifiers or the Champions League. And it's always the opposition of going to score. Like, that partnership always the fear dread down the spine.
Can I throw one out there that we'll probably have to come back to? But the conversation we've just had about the hurling and whether we should be obliged to emphasise the teaching of hurling from a young age.
No, I don't think there's any obligation. But I was on to a friend of mine last night, also from Cork, who's a big hurler, and he would strongly feel the same as Liam Griffin.
I would feel that way.
Well, because I was looking at what he was saying from the perspective of, say, like, there's been an argument for ages, like, should clubs to get funding in, say, the Premier League or wherever it is, or even in Ireland, should they have to have a women's division and women's teams to get that funding and is there an obligation there? And a lot of what he was saying was interesting to me, because it was just the similar arguments that I've heard for years and years, but in a different context.
Yeah, that's so spot on. Like, it's something that we should look to protect and promote. And so he's identified happening organically. So somebody needs to step in and take action over it. And like, I don't know. Look, I do get the people who are not into GA or don't want to be into it or whatever, do you have to force them to play hurling? And I don't think it's ever really about that, but it's equally about giving the opportunity to play hurling.
I think it'd be interesting if you did bring it forward and say, because it's under 7s and under 9s, and say every club did have to provide that service and gave it like 5 years or something. And after that 5 years, you went back and said, okay, well, how many of those kids have gone on to compete at under 12 or under 14 level? And is it actually making a progression? Because I know, like, at home, Sligo's hasn't been a massive hurling county, but there's been like a real sort of rejuvenation of the sport over the last couple of years, and a couple of the clubs in my parish got together and set up a hurling team, and like even you see Eastskey getting to the final this year, like they're actually doing really well, and there's a real interest in it, and they're starting to set up the smaller or the younger age groups. So like there is an appetite when, and you know, kids at that age, if you're playing sport, you just want to play sport.
Yeah, that's the thing. See, I'd stop short of enforcing any obligation to play, but I do think there's no harm in introducing as many sports as possible to kids that age, because they don't know any better, and it will actually help them, as Liam pointed out, which I think is probably the best point for me, is that it will, if anything, it will just improve your skills in other sports. It's transferable. But it's interesting you mentioned Sligo there and hurling. My niece-in-law, I suppose, she's mad into her Gaelic football and she's progressing very, very nicely. 12 years old, but she's focused entirely on football and not hurling at all. Not camogie, like, in any way.
Yeah. And like, you definitely have to have an allowance for choice, but I do think the opportunity is kind of the key with that one. Maybe we'll come back to that again down the track. Kathleen's nodding, saying, yes, get the hell out of here. That is a abridged version of the Firepit on Friday.
What is it called? Firepit? Firepit Fridays.
So we just put a bit more thought into dominating comments box this morning. You gotta call it like it is.
Friday, like, come on. The Friday Firepit.